Good morning. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our breakfast event for September. I'm playing one of my favourite songs. Can you hear it? Welcome. I'm so glad that you're here. Thank you for being here this morning. I'd love, while we're waiting for people to jump on, I would love you to share with me who's here and where you're coming from. And so I'll turn that off now. So I was really keen to start the morning in a beautiful way for myself this morning. So playing some music to get me in the mood. How have you started your morning? Maybe you're out and about having a walk. Maybe you're resting in bed. Maybe you're having a cup of tea, sitting at the kitchen bench, eating your breakfast. So maybe you've already started work. So wherever you are, however you're here, I'd like to welcome you. My name's Karen Williams. I'm a transformational leadership and executive coach. I'm also a team and organisational trainer and a facilitator of Brave Conversations. So my team and I have the absolute pleasure every day to support people and helping them in their mindset, in their communication, their ability to collaborate with others so that we can keep growing and keep achieving great results because that's fun, because co-creation is the juice of life, and because it's about what's possible. What's possible when we all come together in our self-leadership and have conversations where we're being brave to be all that we are and all that we're not, and then lean in together without judgment, but being human at the same time and catching ourselves when we are judging or when we're being self-critical, and reset so that we can keep moving. So that's my passion, to have those kind of conversations. And that's what these breakfast events are about. So I'm excited to have this conversation with you today when so much feels not okay at the moment. And how do we be okay in that? But how do we own when we're not okay? And so that to me is a depth of conversation that we don't always have. We want to, but we don't always know how to. So welcome if you're here for the first time. So let me see who's here today. So Jackie from Sydney. Hi, Jackie. Nice to see you. Thank you for being here. And so Lynette from Tassie. Lovely. Can't wait. I'm visiting Tassie, fingers crossed, over Christmas, New Year. So looking forward to that. Thank you for being here, Lynette. And who else is here? So Vicky's here. Welcome, Vicky. Thank you for being here. Michael. Anne's here. Hi, Anne, all the way from St Kilda. Lovely to see you. Hi, Lisa from Maribyrnong. Lovely to see you. Welcome. And so lots of people jumping on at the moment. So thank you all for being here. And so Helen's here as well. Hi, Helen. Hi, Kathy. Nice to see you. Tracy, good morning. Good morning, good morning. So I've been playing my music, so I'm going to turn that off now and make sure my phone's on airplane mode so nothing happens while we're with each other this morning. And so if you're here for the first time, because I know there's a lot of people jumping on today for the first time, a lot of new names I was seeing as I was looking through who's coming this morning. And I think maybe because of the topic as well, that it's such a topic that hits home, doesn't it? That we all know that at times we don't feel okay, but where do we feel safe to say it? And what do we actually need when we're not okay? And then how do we role model for others that it's okay not to be okay? Yeah, how do we do that without feeling like that we're oversharing or we're, not honouring our own boundaries? I was speaking with an amazing woman yesterday in our coaching session, as I get the opportunity to do every day. And she was sharing or asking me, she said I could quote her, I won't use her name, but we both laughed. She said, so there's this conversation at work in our management team about vulnerability and trust. And she said, how do I do vulnerability without breaking my shell? I was drinking a glass of water at the time and I kind of spurted it out because it reminded me exactly of if you've ever heard of Brené Brown share when she was talking about vulnerability, when she was trying to avoid it. And it was exactly like that moment. And I honoured the woman that I was coaching because it was so raw and real. And she allowed me in on that conversation with her. So we went down a beautiful deep tunnel then to look at, well, how do we honour boundaries? When we're not okay and we need support, how do we reach out? How do we know when it's safe? Yeah. And so as leaders, it's important that we're stepping into that space, because otherwise the people that we're supporting won't. So who else is here today? Hi, Nat. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for being here. So thank you so much for sharing where you're at and that you're here. As I said, if you're here for the first time, I welcome you. We've been running these online events since March last year, or I think the first one was April. And I've been loving running them, and it gives me an opportunity to reflect as well and to share with you some passions that I have. And so if you're here for the first time, grab a notebook, make sure you've got something to catch your ideas with, maybe your phone or whatever that looks like for you, because you will receive something that's new for you. If you're looking for it, you've got to be open to it. And also, it might not be from me, it might be from someone who shares in the chat box, or we might open the call to a coaching conversation and you might hear something in that as well. And if you're here because you've been here before, and some of you have been here every session since we started these online events last year, I honor and acknowledge you for continuing to show up for yourself, because it takes something. I know that you know that I know that it takes something to keep showing up. So I acknowledge you and welcome you to the call, and trust that you will gain something fresh today, as you always do, because I know that you're listening from a new place each time. And if you've been here sometimes and not other times, then I welcome you as well and acknowledge you for investing an hour in yourself today. So it's brilliant for me to be here with you. And so I'm looking forward to this conversation. So what we do is we run one-on-one coaching programs. So I've been coaching for about 20 years, and we do that whether that's with people who come to us from their own space. So we call that from the public space. So like these events are for the general public. And then we also work one-on-one with leaders in organizations, and we work with teams as well, leadership teams at multi-levels of organizations. And the space that we work in is in this emotional intelligence influence space around conversations and connection. And that relates back to my leadership excellence framework that starts with leading self. And we're going to be talking about that today and how that fits into being okay with not being okay. All right, so what I'd like you to do and invite you to do is, as we go through today, pop your thoughts in the chat box. You might like to shift it to panelists and attendees, or some version of that, or everyone, or all attendees, so that as you're sharing, that everyone can see what you're sharing, if you're comfortable to do that, of course. And it can help other people be inspired by what you've got to share. And so if you feel comfortable doing that, I ask you to switch that over. And also, I might miss an amazing comment that you make, or a question. I might miss it in this hour today. I'll go back and read it later. But other people might gain value from it, even if I don't read it out. So I'd love you to do that. All right, so let me make sure I've got my notes down here to make sure that I cover everything that I want to. So today is your opportunity to stop and pause, reflect, refresh, and reset. A mini retreat for you to be all that you are and all that you're not, with no judgment, no apology, nothing to justify, no clipping of wings. If you're in an awesome space, be awesome. If you're in a space where you don't feel awesome, like you're the opposite of awesome, then that's totally fine, and be that. Yeah. This is your space to be however you are, and know that all of that is okay. Now, I can say those words, doesn't mean you'll feel it, but hopefully through this session today, from how we're having this conversation, you'll start to feel that. Yep. Awesome. So this is a community that does the work. Yep. So we want to go from thinking to doing, and then into being. So our personal transformation requires immersion in new content. It then requires implementation of that information. So that's the doing. And then what happens, we do that often enough, over and over, and then we get into a state of integration, which is we become there's a new normal for us. Our brain shifts. And if you've worked with me, and many of you have, you'll know that after a few months, there's a click, there's something that happens. And then there's this clarity, and all of a sudden you're showing up in a new space. Doesn't mean it stays there forever, right? It's a constant practice. Very good. Okay. Hi, Marnie. Lovely to see you. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Yes. Yep. I have been not okay over this lockdown. Lockdown 6.5 or 7. I lost count in Melbourne. I'm from Melbourne. And so there's been times where I've just not been okay. And so I know there's times that you haven't been okay as well. And when you think of those times, and it's okay to reflect on those times, I want you to know that I'm holding space for you here today to reflect on whatever you feel is comfortable for you. And if you reflect on those times where you haven't been okay, who do you reach out to? Often we'll reach out to those closest to us, but then sometimes we don't feel so safe to do that, do we? because we don't want to be fixed. We don't want to be judged. We just want to be. And I know for me in my life, there's a handful of people, a small number of people where I will, when I'm really not okay, and I'll reach out because I know that I won't be judged. I won't be thought less of. I know that it won't feel like I've got a story in my head going that I'm being judged, right? Because there's probably a lot of people that I could share with, but I might be concerned that I'll be judged. So there's stories in our own head about managing that too. And so there'll be a circle of people around you. There might be one person that you know you feel really safe with. And that's really important, isn't it? Because we want to be able to find our own answers. You think of a child who's like, no, let me do it for myself. That's our state of independence. And that's not a disconnection. That's a state of self-leadership. Yeah. And when we're in that state of self-leadership, then we can connect more deeply with others. And so we need that emotional safety around us. And we can be part of creating and causing that. And that will be part of our conversation today. So I'd like you to set an intention for today. I'm going to pop some things on the board here. And I've got a few models that I want to share with you today. So I've got 3 steps. And also ask you to set your intention. What connected for you today that you're here? What is it that really spoke to your heart? Is it about learning how to be okay with not being okay for yourself? Is it a conversation that you want to take into your organization? Or is it something that you want to contribute to your family? So I'd like you to write down and set your intention so that you're listening through that lens and you can get the most value from today. All right. Very cool. So if you think about when you're not feeling okay, and then you think of who is it that I want to reach out to, there might be people that you go, I'd really love to reach out to them. I really want them to be the one. And then it doesn't feel right inside your gut. And so you don't. And I honor that. It took me a long time to figure that out. And I didn't realize it for a long time, but I was oversharing, looking for connection, looking for validation, looking for people to say to me, it's okay that you're not okay. That language wasn't even around in the times I'm talking about now, maybe 10 years ago or so. And I went there more than probably was healthy for me with people that I wanted to provide that for me. And I learned eventually after feeling that experience many times of not receiving the space that I wanted, it wasn't okay anymore. And that was okay with those people, that those people weren't the people to reach out to. And what I then discovered was how to create that space of emotional safety within myself, a place of self-trust that was something that I nurtured and nourished and continued to do that so that I didn't go seeking it outside myself all the time. Now, there's nothing wrong with doing that. I absolutely advocate for that. But I don't advocate for it as a replacement for us finding that place within ourselves. And I'll show you in a moment why that's so important and then how that allows you to be that beautiful coach and support and guide for others. Yes, to take back to your work. Brilliant, Carolyn, thank you. And so as we know, there's a few things I want to give you here around with regard to mental health being on the rise. We hear that a lot in the media at the moment with the pandemic. And there's the World Health Organization talks about this on their website. And also the World Health Organization speaks to that mental health is like a critical element of our general well-being and health. And I think that's a beautiful statement because it's not complex. And it's really easy to understand that, of course, our mental health isn't something that sits on the side, and maybe potentially it has been as a culture, but it's a part of our general well-being. And if we're not acknowledging that, then we're missing an important piece for ourselves and our teams, yeah? And so there's probably a lot of strategies that are being implemented maybe around you in your organisation, or even you might be part of that implementation. And I hope today that you'll really get some ideas about how to do that from a space of listening and being able to create that space of emotional safety. Okay, so I'm just checking on comments here. Hi, Jazz. Yes, space for others around you who are struggling. Yes. to help guide our teams. Thank you, Steph. Yes, excellent. So let's get into it. A woman came to me about 6 months ago, and she was feeling flat and disconnected from her life, sort of like this numb feeling, and also from her family, from her children and her husband. And she found that she was reacting more quickly to things, like the hot buttons were just right under the surface. And that's a lot that I'm experiencing in people at the moment, in the people that we're working with, coaching and in group situations. And she remembered, though, this memory of herself being happy, lighthearted, loving going out with friends, but she felt like this distant memory that she couldn't somehow connect back to, no matter what she tried. And she was really frustrated by how she was feeling and that it wasn't changing. And so in and out of lockdown as well over the last year or so was challenging her to get that stability or find that place within her. And that may be happening for you or your teams, as some of you have shared. And she wasn't allowing that space for herself to feel it, to not be okay. She was judging herself harshly for not being who she knows that she has been in the past. And so that was making it worse. Yeah. And so when she showed up, and in our first coaching session, she was just really flat and numb, as I said, and disconnected. But through the coaching, and so I'm just checking on my notes because I want to share this with you. Through the coaching, so my passion is to create a safe and trusted space so people can go through what they need to go through to reconnect with themselves. And this is what you'll learn, or some of what you'll learn today. How do I do that? So she learned that not being okay was a part of being human. In that space, it's like, oh, yeah, I can see that I've been really harsh and judgmental of myself because I've been calibrating to what I think other people think about not being okay. Yeah. She started to allow, in that safe space, she started to allow herself to let go of her own judgment and to come back to herself and care more about what she thought than what others thought. And this is really critical for you and your teams, for them to be able to come back to themselves and self-judge rather than, as self-assess, self-judge, rather than get in their head and worry about what others are thinking about them, yeah, or what they might think about them if they say they're not okay. If you can facilitate a space for people where they can come back to their truth, they'll know that it's okay to not be okay. Yeah, you think of a child tantruming on the floor, they know it's okay to not be okay in that moment. They're having their moment and they let themselves have that. It's not until us adults come along and go, hey, that's not okay, right? But if you can hold space for someone to really feel not okay, that's when they're going to reconnect with who they really are, yeah, and return to buoyancy. So over the course of the program, she returned to a space of clarity and playfulness, and it was like a miracle for her because she'd been trying to do that for quite a long time. So I want you to know this is simple, but it's complex and powerful at the same time, and it's transformational. Yeah, and it may be things that you've heard before, but I want you to check in and go, okay, where's my depth here? Is there a new level I can go to? Because part of today is going to be talking about, are you really listening? Now, you know that. You've read books on that. You've read lots of things on that. But I want you to tune into your quality of listening. Yeah. How long do you allow silence? I've been working with groups of leaders at the moment where one particular leader said she just can't allow silence. She's just got to fill it all the time. This is a very successful leader and manager. And so she's realizing for herself the space of discomfort when silence starts to happen and the automatic program that kicks in her to need to fill it. And so where are you leaning into the discomfort of silence? Yeah, because that space is where your people need to be okay with not being okay. All right, so I'm just going to check if there's any comments. Yes, okay, we're good. I've read all those. So 1 in 5 Australians are reporting high levels of psychological distress linked to the pandemic. There's so many stats, right? So there's one. You can Google it. You'll get lots of stats on that. We know it's challenging for all of us. You know that it's challenging for your teams, yes? Susan Bauer-Wu, who's a mindfulness teacher, in the book, The Gift of Presence, which is a book that I really love. And if you're part of the Inner Circle program that's coming up very soon, then that might be a book that we'll be referring to. So I'm very excited about that. And she says, when you are mindful, so when you're present and mindful and you're really listening and you hold that depth of space and silence, you have emotional balance with fewer extreme highs and lows. and a sense of spaciousness, I love that word, and inquisitiveness toward whatever arises. Space, yeah? It's not often we get that space in our day. Your job is to create space, not fill it with answers. You've got to open up and have less answers and more space. That's tip number 1. And she says you can catch yourself. So when we're mindful and present, we can catch ourselves when caught in a downward spiral of negative thinking or when other mental obstacles trip us up. So part of your coaching and leading of others is helping them be okay in space and silence. Because if they can do that, that's where they'll find their reconnection with their self and their buoyancy and their clarity. Yes? I've been doing this work for a long time and it's never failed me. It's proven to me over and over again, and it's delightful and delicious if you can hold that space for people. Yeah. All right. So I want to give you now the first thing on the board. So any questions or any comments so far, any insights, make sure that you're sharing them in the chat box because you're going to inspire someone else. Yeah. All right. So consider that self-leadership sits above the line, right? Sits above the line in our quality of thinking, our quality of communication, our quality of showing up for others. So self-leadership sits above the line. Yeah, and this is about ownership. Nat, can you let me know that you can see this okay, please? Ownership, responsibility, and you can use this for your teams, yes? If you've got leaders leading people, or if you are working with a team and introducing this concept of, or expanding on this concept of self-leadership, this is about being solution-focused, but not in a way that we don't consider the challenges. It's about understanding and staying long enough with the problem, but then having that intention when to move into solution. Yeah. So rather than drama, we're in a solution focus. Yes. And this is about self-regulation. It's perfect. Thanks, Nat. And this is about emotional intelligence. And awareness, yeah? So that's all in the space of self-leadership that sits above the line. If we're not in that space of self-leadership, so if we're not self-regulating our emotions, if we're not taking responsibility for, I'm not okay in this moment, and I actually need to communicate that, I need to be heard, I need someone to respect it. Yeah, if we're not in that space, and most people aren't, which is why we're here having this conversation, most people are feeling some level not okay. A leader said to me recently, scratch the surface for everyone, and at some level, we're all not okay. Yeah. And so if we're not okay, but we're not owning it and we're not communicating it, then we're not in this space. And I know that might sound harsh, but I want to give you this clear distinction that when we are self-leading, we're feeling into where we are, we're using our breath and our state of presence to acknowledge our not okayness. And then we're checking with ourselves, what do I need right now? So that's quite a distinct way of being, yes? That it's something I want you to be practicing, and I'm sure you are to some degree, but I want you to start to think about, where am I actually not checking in with myself like that and owning that and starting to create a conversation in our organisation for it's healthy, yes? So that's where self-leadership is. If we're not doing that, then we're in some level of blame. We're in some level of blame or protection or protecting, yeah? This is a state of passive aggressive, because this is where we won't be okay, but we won't say it. So then we'll start to take it out on others, not knowing it, not with the intention to, but it will, I'll call it that leaky energy. It will erupt at times that aren't appropriate or disproportionate, but because we haven't been taken care of the not okayness, right? And your people potentially will be doing this, or there'll be some level of withdrawal. So they'll just shrink away. Yep. and everything will be fine, but actually underneath. And if you're not asking the right questions, you won't get to the truth of the fact that they're not okay. And it won't be until, it starts to go down the slippery slope of not okayness that it gets worse for them on the inside. And that's harder to come back from, yes? So we want to be noticing these things sooner rather than later. And the way that we do that is how your skills that we'll talk about as we go through. Okay, so this is a place of dependency and attachment. You guys with me? Give me a thumbs up if you're getting this. So if we're not in this constant state of tuning in, where am I at? As a way of being and a way that we live our lives, and that takes practice, then some of the time, if not all of the time, we're going to be here, not really knowing it. And especially as the pressure cooker of the pandemic and the lockdown and come out and lockdown, right? Wherever you're at, you may not be in lockdown, but the rest of the country might be, and that's something that's challenging for you as well. So we'll be in this state if we're not there. But here's the thing. What we want to do is we want to move back into a state of self-leadership, and we want to help your people do that, right? But what I want you to know, I'm just checking my thoughts here, is that what will happen, the way that we'll do that, a human being will want to get out of this, but what they'll usually do is leave or change, right? So we'll get to a place maybe in our team or in an organisation or with our manager and not feel like we're being heard. So eventually we're going to leave in some form, and whether that's emotionally while we're still shocked physically, or we actually disengage fully physically, because we all want to get back to a state of buoyancy. Yes? Been writing this word for a few days and I keep getting it wrong. Right? We all want to get back to a state of buoyancy. That's a natural state for human being. So we think the only option is to leave when we're in this place. You guys with me? And so we'll get to here for a bit, or we'll think that we're there, new job, new partner, new home, whatever that looks like. Yeah, and still potentially in the situation we're in lockdown, people are still moving jobs or disengaging but showing up physically. What happens then though, if we haven't changed something inside of ourselves around our okayness to not be okay, eventually we're going to go back into this cycle, because we're expecting the external circumstances to help us be okay. We're waiting for people to give us permission to not feel okay. Yeah. And so your job as a leader or coach or guide or mentor is to help your people self-regulate here. Yeah. And they only can do that by understanding that they're here. And so your job is allowing them to be there, because if not, where we want to move to, and so what the impact is here, the impact is here on a lack of trust. So when we're here, whether that's us or others, you think about yourself when you're here, or you think about the people in your team that are there. Other people are going to, move away from them. It's going to be a break in trust. Yeah, I won't hold that person accountable because they might explode. I won't ask them how they are because I don't know how to deal with whatever they might say. Yeah. What happens is here we don't have any influence. Yeah. And this also, as we continue in this cycle, it erodes our own self-trust. Can you still see that? I think so. Yeah. Because we're looking outside of ourselves. Yeah. Are you guys with me? So it's making sense, yes? So we want to cut the cycle. We want to, and the way that we do that is make sure that we're creating that space. Yeah. So this is the why we're doing this, because we want people to be in a space of self-leadership so that they can do these things, so that you're creating leaders, not followers. Yes. Been speaking quite a lot with leaders at the moment about creating leaders, not followers. How do we do that, especially in these times? It's not your job as a leader to keep plugging holes and fixing problems. It's your job to build independent thinkers. And one of the ways that you do that is help them be okay with not being okay, right? So make sure you got this. Yes. All right. So I'm going to rub this off. So make sure you got this down. First step. Cool. All right. So we know that we want to get people to a space of self-leadership, right? So I want you to have that be your intention. So in one of my frameworks for leadership called the partner state is equal measures, accountability and compassion. It's so interesting. I opened the HBR email today and my language was there. I couldn't believe it. And this is the language I use every day. It's a distinction I wrote about 6 years ago, that accountability and compassion are not mutually exclusive. I couldn't believe when I read it. I'm like, hang on a minute. That was quite amazing. So in the model of the partner state, we have equal measures, accountability and compassion. And you might also include curiosity here, right? And so your job, don't worry about that, is some people are really good at accountability, some people are really good at compassion. But if you're really good at accountability and have no compassion, I call that dictator. If you're really good at compassion and have no accountability, then I call that nurturer. Either way, that's not working for you. Yeah, you've got to get into a state of partnership, which is equal measures, accountability and compassion. And what that means is you need to have an intention for people to break through where they're stuck, but have compassion for their journey and how you get there. Because you might want them to get there like this in a straight line. Okay, I need you to get here, which is I want you to be okay. And right now you're not okay. And so the quickest way is there. So I'm going to start advising you. Yeah, a lot of groups I'm working with at the moment, people are coaching and guiding them in how to ask questions as opposed to give advice. Because when someone's sharing vulnerably about where they're at in that moment, and then someone opens their mic and starts talking about, well, this is what happened to me, and this is what I did, this is what worked, that's just great advice giving, and it diminishes the experience of the person who's sharing and also diminishes their ability to reconnect with their own internal resources. So rather than us wanting to help people, no helping, right? This is a space of helping. We don't help. We guide and coach and mentor. Yes, we're the guide for people. So while we might want the journey to be like that, if we're willing to hold intentionality for the okayness and trust that that will happen inside the space we create, then this journey could be like this. But here's what happens. They will grow, they will become independent thinkers, and they will become leaders in the space that you hold for them. You guys with me? And so don't be the helper. Don't be people that give good advice, right? Hold the intention and then guide them along the way. So that's your job. All right, I hope that makes sense. Let me know if you have any insights about that. I would love to hear your thoughts. Go, Anne. Awesome. You're getting it. Fabulous. All right. What's my time? 8:03. Very good. All right, so I want to hear your thoughts so far. I work really well when I'm hearing what you've got to share and knowing that it's connecting for you. So I'd love you all to put in the chat box one thing that you've gotten so far today. What is it that you're taking away that's an insight for you to reflect on, refresh on, or something new? So take a moment to do that. I'll run this off. Yeah, very good, Carolyn. So Carolyn says, I swing between giving advice and letting my report self-reflect. Yes. So it can be hard not to give advice, right? Because we think that's what's going to make the difference. But if we can manage our state of presence and tune in a little bit longer, there'll be a question that's inspired that will be the source of their breakthrough. It takes practice. Yeah. And it takes us getting off our ego to stop giving advice, doesn't it? Beautiful sharing. Thank you, Willie. Hi, Willie. Oh, you're so sweet. My heart always feels better when I listen to your words, Karen. I like the partnership model, accountability and compassion. It's my favorite, one of my favorites. And that's based on the restorative practices or restorative justice model that I learned when I was working in that space. Balancing compassion and accountability rather than being too nurturing. Yep. Thank you, Shannon. The partnering model is great. A great refresher. Very easy for me to fall back into nurture. Yes. Yes, Michael, very good. And so you know that model, right? And so catching yourself, because as we, especially in these times, as we want to help, our heart aches for others. We want to help them. And we think that that means sort of like what happens is we collapse into their energy or collapse into that space with them and sort of take up their space. We don't mean to, but we want to help. And then it's just not working. So moving back into a state of listening, and hold that intentionality. Very good. Tracy says, your partner model has had a profound impact on the way I operate. I used to go between partner and nurture, and now I hold the space. Tracy, you are a star. And our conversation earlier this week, it's your way of being. Like, the shift is so gorgeous and clear. There's nothing wrong before, but there's this elegance and sophistication and approachability and beautiful energy that you're within right now. It's gorgeous, and I honor it because you've done the work and doing the work, right? Awesome. So there's lots of comments here. So let me see if I love the concept of the intention to support. Yes, very good. Thank you, Audrey, for sharing. Yep. Yes, very good. So Vicky shares, love the accountability and compassion. I know I'm hold accountable, but in stress, the compassion can be missing. Yes. So you might go into dictator mode. So we can often, when we're busy as well, and then there's stress, and then there's dealing with working from home, we might go into that dictator mode, just like firing off instructions and telling people what to do. And we can all do that at times, and just being aware of it and going, okay, hang on, maybe I need to pause here, reconnect with my breath. Where am I at? And then listen and ask a question. Very good, Audrey. I love that. I love that you got something new already. Okay, so let's keep moving forward. And thank you so much for your sharing, because it helps me to know what's connecting for you and that we're on the right track for you. Awesome. So I want to give you now this second piece, which is have a think about the last time you didn't feel okay for yourself, right? Because I know a lot of you are here for your teams, which is awesome. And when we can understand this for ourselves, we can hold space for it in others, for others, right? And so have a think about when you last didn't feel okay and you're looking for that safe space, right? And there might have been people that you reached out to in your intention to feel okay or to feel supported. There might have been that many, there might not have been, there might have just been one person. But your intention was to feel safe and to feel okay with not being okay. And that might have just been sucking it up and just getting on with it, right? But if you really dive deep into that feeling of not being okay, as human beings, we want to feel connected. We want to feel heard. And we want to feel supported. There's nothing like that experience of someone really being present with you and listening, is there? And it's very rare. And it's one of the most brilliant gifts we can give, and we forget. And so when we're not okay and we're looking for this safe space, we'll think about the people that we want to connect in with, and we want to feel heard. We want to feel gotten, what I call gotten. We want to feel respected. This is coming up a bit for me in my work at the moment for people I'm working with, wanting to feel respected and valued, wanting people to be authentic with us, and wanting people to be present. That's usually what we're feeling for, needing when we're in that space of not okay. I don't want you to tell me it's okay to not be okay. I actually want you to show me and have me feel that by who you're being. That's really what we want, and that's what your people want. I don't want to hear again that it's okay to not be okay. I can go and look at any Instagram post and read that, right? I want you to have me feel that. And the only way I'm going to feel that with you is if you're feeling that inside yourself about you. Because if you're not letting yourself not be okay, but you're trying to convince me it's okay to not be okay in front of you, Sorry, that doesn't align. Yeah. Because I, as a human being, I'm going to feel more from who you're being than the words that you're telling me. Yeah. And so these are things that we want. But what happens is we're looking for it while things are coming at us from the external environment that having us not feel okay. We're also looking to the external environment to be okay. You guys with me? So as human beings and as empathetic beings, we're constantly calibrating to the external to see if we're safe. So we do that physically. Is this a safe space? Is my front door locked when I go to bed? When I'm out for a walk, am I feeling safe? My senses are around me, depending on what time of day it is. So we all have that ability, obviously, in our brain. Our brain is wired to calibrate to that physical safety. It's also wired to calibrate to the emotional safety. So you think about you and your people are always sensing, is it safe here? Is it safe here? Is it safe here? I was working with a woman recently who shared, actually, and she was the one who shared about can I do vulnerability and still keep my shell? So funny. And as I said, she said I could quote her. So she was going into this space where she didn't feel safe to go in. She didn't feel safe to go into this because she knew the coach was going to ask some questions that she didn't feel safe to answer already and didn't want to. So going into the room, she already felt this tightness and tension in her gut. And so my coaching to her was to have some conversations before that session to communicate her intentionality to be engaged and connected in the space so she wasn't perceived as someone who's withdrawing, but also to let people know that she was going to honour her boundaries and to let people know when she had finished sharing that was all she wanted to share for today. And so if you can create that safe space for your people, then they're going to calibrate to themselves rather than to others around them. Because your people are constantly calibrating to, what are other people going to think? Are they going to judge me? Will they think that I'm less than who I say I am, or less than them? There's people I know in your life you will not share your most vulnerable things with for this very reason. And so your people and your teams are doing the same thing. They're judging and assessing you to see if it's safe to share with you, but also to be that in front of others. Yes. So this here, what I want you to understand is that we're constantly calibrating. We've got things coming at us from the external environment, but then we're also always calibrating to the internal environment. My job with you today is to have you go, what if I could take my attention off the external environment for a moment, right? And what if I could create these things? And what if my team could create these things for themselves? And that's the space of self-trust that I mentioned to you earlier, where for me, it took me a number of years to realize that that's where I needed to go instead of seeking that permission from the external environment. Yeah, because I would try and try again, and then I would feel diminished. Yeah, I would feel judged. I'd feel like people were trying to help me and I didn't want help. I wanted to find my own clarity. We all know inside of ourselves that we have those answers. We just need someone to help us to find them. Yep. So your job now is to, for yourself first, is to come back to, how can I respect myself? How can I create a space of feeling heard for myself? How can I be present with myself? Yep. I'm hoping that the penny's dropping here, because you will all be seeking some of this outside of yourselves. How can I bring myself back to a space of valuing myself? Yeah. And that is then going to help your people. That's going to be role modeling for your people. And it's going to help your people connect with that internal resource inside themselves. So that is the essential step. Instead of the helping or the advice giving, this is what you need to be doing. Do you guys understand me? So let me hear from you if that's making sense. Your job is to help people come back to this space by you doing this first. Yeah. And so the question then is, how do I do that? Yes. How do I get back to this space? And some of you who've worked with me before, you know the answer to this. What's the answer? How do I get back to that space? Pop it in the chat box. How do I get to these spaces for myself? You know, I know you know. Self-care, right? So self-care. There's no substitute for self-care. And if you've worked with me and you see, or you've met someone who's worked with me and you've seen their before and after, you'll know the difference that self-care makes. Meditation, quiet mind, stillness, self-care. Yes, thank you, Vicky. And a lot of leaders I'm working with at the moment know it, and they know that they're just not getting to that meditation. And someone shared with me earlier, she may or may not be on this call today, last week I think it was, who said, I've just got the connection between why meditation is important and leadership, right? Because, and so a post I put up yesterday is that we don't meditate to get good at meditation. We meditate to get good at life. So at those moments when you're not okay and you're running from it and you're pushing it down and then you're telling your people it's okay to not be okay, those are the moments to come back to self, and the meditation will allow you to do that because it will help you build the muscle to tune in and will help you know when you're not okay. And then you can say to your people, you know what, right now, I'm actually not okay. I might just sit in silence for a moment. And if you'd like, you can welcome to sit with me. Just need to pause and breathe for a moment. And then I know that, you know, my okayness will return. Yeah. So self-care is important. Currently walking and listening for my self-care before work and remote learning. Beautiful, Carolyn. Well done. So space of valuing self, self-encouraging talk. Yes, self-encouraging talk as opposed to self-critical talk. Very good, Jess. Thank you. Acknowledge what I have done, been through, handle. Yes. And so knowing that it's okay. And so there was a session I was facilitating yesterday, and, you know, encouraging people, if they're feeling amazing, like I shared with you today, don't clip your wings. Don't feel that you need to apologize because someone else in your space, your peer, your close personal friend even, is not feeling okay. It's okay for you to be okay. Yeah. Because then it allows us to be human, to own that whole spectrum of emotion, right? So there's one thing more I want to give you. So have you guys got the importance of this? Give me a yes. Give me a reflection in the comments, please. Stop calibrating to the external. Start calibrating to the internal through all the self-care. Yeah, and there's lots of webinars on self-care on my YouTube channel. And start to create these things that you want externally within yourself, and do the work for that. Remember I said at the top of this today, this is a community. It does the work. It goes from knowing it to doing it to being it. Yep, that's where transformation occurs. And this is how you're going to help your people the most. Okay, you guys got this? Give me a thumbs up because I'm going to rub it off. I've got one more thing to share with you. What's the piece you're going to take out of today so far for this that you haven't been doing while spruiking? It's okay to not be okay. Where have you been letting yourself down? Maybe not fulfilling your own commitment to yourself. And it's okay. We're all human. I do this too. Yeah. I want to be valued and respected by others. Yeah. I want others to be authentic with me. So we do that. Yes. Ellen, back into meditation. Yes, very good. 5, 10, 15 minutes, that's all it takes. So take a moment now to recommit to something. It might be out on the board, it might be something else. So love you to share it because someone else might be inspired by your idea of how you're going to stop calibrating externally so that you can stop reacting to what's external, but most importantly, so you can show up for your people, for them, and role model your authentic nature and let yourself not be okay. I'll give you a moment to share that in the chat box. What is it that you're committing or recommitting to? And then I want to give you one more bit. And then I might ask if, yeah. Yes, very good, Jess. Authentics with self, I'm not good at. Often used to putting on a brave face. So I imagine that there'll be many people on this call that are doing the brave face thing, right? And I get it, and I totally understand why you're doing that. Vulnerability is not oversharing, as Brene Brown would say. Vulnerability is not just, vulnerability without discernment is not vulnerability. In leadership, I mean, right? So vulnerability with our teams to show them that we're not being okay is done with discernment, which is about wisdom and experience, which comes from practice, right? So we could go from the opposite of brave face to just falling apart, but that's not useful for our team either. And the only reason we would swing back to the falling apart, I'm not saying this is you, Jess, but the only reason we would swing back from, brave face for so long, then to falling apart, is because we haven't taken care of ourselves. And there's no option then to just kind of in a bundle and we need 3 days off or we get sick or whatever that looks like, yes? That's not helpful for our team either way. And what's helpful is the vulnerability of being real and authentic. And as I said to you before, being able to say, today I'm actually not okay. I'm really struggling. And, this is my request. These are my needs. This is what I'm asking of you. Is this something you can provide? If not, I'm not asking with attachment, as we put on the board before. We're not attached, but we do speak up and ask for our needs to be met. Yeah, very good. Okay, so Michael shares, self-care has been the bigger part of my journey over the last 6 to 12 months, meditation and daily walks. And you know what? And I hope you don't mind me saying this in this forum, Michael, but I have noticed that the way that you're showing up as a leader in your space and with your team and teams, because you have a really important job, as everybody on this call does, right? You're a senior leader, and your investment in your self-care is rippling. It's rippling across, and I can see it in how you're showing up, the integrity with which you share, the power, the resonance of what you share. It's awesome. So I honor you for doing that work. Take something, yes? And I also love your pictures on your renovation. So gorgeous. If ever I need a renovation, I know where I'm coming. Okay, so here's the thing about what I want to say about authenticity as well, right? And so in the event copy, I said, if we can manage the space of authenticity and vulnerability with integrity, and the space of courage with integrity, there's a distinction here that's really important. We've got to be managing it with integrity, because we can get lost in what authenticity means. And we can get lost in our people then thinking that being authentic, if you're coaching them to find their authentic nature and to be okay being real with where they're at, they might then misinterpret that and start to just react in the moment how they're feeling and project and actually speak up in ways that aren't healthy and can create toxicity between people, right? So we want to manage this space with integrity, and that's an important distinction of being coach-like in your role. So I hope you may understand what I mean by that. If you don't, please ask. All right, so when we, what I want you to know is, can you guys read that? So role modeling that it's okay to not be okay is an authentic place, and it's managed in that state of integrity. Saying it's okay to not be okay, but not role modeling it, that's not authentic, right? And so when we're doing that, we're kind of relating to authenticity as a noun, like it's something that's a fact, when actually this is a way of being, a moment by moment conversation, yeah, practice, being willing to fail or look silly, I'm going to say, or be judged, right? That's a risk we think we have to take. We have to lean into that discomfort. So this is the practice. So this is how do I role model it's okay not being okay? Because we've distinguished today that it's not enough to say it. We have to, if you want to lead and coach your team, create leaders and independent thinkers and people that are okay with not being okay, then you've got to role model it, yeah? And so this here is about being perfect. So if we're just saying it, it's about trying to be perfect. It's about self-protection. It's about disconnection. This also, can you still see this, guys? This is also about telling and reassuring, right? Which is what we said before about the advice giving or the helping. That's all in the saying it's okay. And this is not authentic. You might think it is because you mean well. Meaning well is not authenticity with integrity. Yeah. And then this is an outward focus. So we're helping, advice giving. And this is about convincing. All right, you guys got me? Give me a thumbs up if you got me. When actually where we want to be, right, is here. And this is how. So your job is your awareness through self-care. It's your ability to connect through presence, silence, and questions. And if you want to know how, ask me a question. We might do a quick conversation. 3 minutes to go. This is inward focus. And instead of convincing, because you think that you're leading here by trying to tell people that it's okay to not be okay, you and whoever, right? Me, I sometimes do this too. We're all human. But we're not, we're convincing. This here is a space of leading. Because this is a space of role modeling. So the quality of our conversation when we're in this space is really important. The quality of our energy, the quality of the resonance of our tone. And you know that there's no substitute for that. So I want to leave what I'm giving you there. I want to ask you if you've got any questions, and I'm happy to stay on a little couple of minutes after if you've got any questions. I know people will have to jump off at 8:30. That's totally fine. But if you want to hang around for a couple of minutes and someone wants to have a conversation, maybe we'll do that. But I want to make sure that you've gotten value from these three things, these three steps. Yes? So remember, let's stop calibrating to the external and helping your people start to calibrate to their internal by you doing that. And the only way that you'll do that is through self-care. Understanding the distinction that self-leadership is above the line, and that's a state, a practice, a way of being. That's where we can say, I'm not okay, and we don't feel less than whole. And anything under that, under the line, is about blame and projection. And that just creates a cycle that will just keep leaving relationships, withdrawing from jobs, looking for that safe space, but then continuing to repeat the cycle until we move into that state of self-leadership. Yeah. Super valuable. Excellent. So I'd love to hear your comments, the one thing you're taking away, and I'd love to hear if this is valuable for you. And as we do that, I'll wrap up so those who've got to jump off can jump off. And if anybody wants to stay on, then let's have a conversation. Because you know what? I ain't going anywhere today. I'm here. So Women's Inner Circle, the 3-month group coaching program, we're just over half full. It starts for our first bonus meet and greet next Friday. I'm so excited. The quality of women and who are investing in themselves and moving into this space. It's such an exciting conversation. Women who really want to do this work have been doing this work. So if you're interested in that 3-month group coaching program, limited to 20 women, I'm very excited. I think Nat's going to put the link in the chat box for you to check out the page. So go to that page. That's the web page. And then in that page, there's a link to register. So, and if you've got questions, would like to have a conversation, if this is the program for you, if you'd like to finish the year feeling connected and clear, no matter the circumstances. You can be real and honor the circumstances, but you can control and connect, control your mind and finish the year really strong, but not strong like bravado or pretending, strong like inner strength, self-leading, and bringing the best to the people that you love, the people around you. All right, so that's on the cards right now. I'm very excited about that program. It's been something I've been wanting to do for a long time. So we'll have more next year, but there are no dates booked, so I'm not sure when that will be. So if you'd like to jump in, then let's have a chat or just jump on and register. So if you'd like to talk about anything that we do with organisations and teams, you can get me at my website, which is KarenWilliams.com. Our YouTube channel, just search Karen Williams Leadership Coach and you'll find me. And there's lots of free stuff there that you can have a look at. We're just starting to get our Instagram page back up. Our Instagram page was deactivated by Instagram. Don't know why. We weren't able to get it back. It was very sad, and now we're restarting again. So I look forward to connecting with you there. We're just getting that going, and there'll be an announcement about that next week. So my pleasure absolutely being here with you. I hope that this has been valuable. There's only so much we can cover in an hour, so I hope that you've gained something through the lens of your intention that you set at the start of the session. I'd love to hear how it was, what your takeaway was. That's really helpful for me to know. Any other questions, or what's your takeaway? You know, that's a really great way to honour your investment of your time today and being intentional about what you're going to implement from this session and from our conversation. So let's round up. And if you'd like to share that, I would love to know what's been the main thing for you. You just can't save everyone. Very good, Ellen. Yeah, such a good point, Ellen. So good. So leaders can't save everyone via positive modelling. That's right. Others need to do the work often, but are not ready. Yes, some people just aren't ready. And that then becomes a different kind of conversation, because if the culture that you're building is a culture of self-leadership and someone's not willing to do the work of self-leadership, then that becomes an obvious mismatch. But it's a natural parting of ways then, from a place of everyone being self-empowered, as opposed to the blame and the withdrawal that we talked about before. Yes. So holding our intention for the quality of the culture that we're creating, yeah, and people will rise with us or they'll naturally fall away, and both are equally okay. Very good. Yes, you'll reflect a bit more, Jazz. Thank you. Yes, you will get the recording. My intention is we'll get it out to you today, but if not, by Monday. Yeah. Thanks, Helen. Great reflection on how I've been supporting self and others more nurturing. So there needs to be more nurturing or less nurturing? I'm interested in that. Are you dropping into a state of collapse energy and nurturing too much? Or do you need to balance out your accountability with a bit of compassion? Less nurturing. Yes, less nurturing. Yes. So more into that intentionality. Very good. Yeah, very good. Good job. All right. So there's lots we could build on. If anybody would like to ask a question, feel free to put your hand up. We didn't get to that today, but I would love to offer that for the next 5 minutes, and then I'm going to jump off and go and have some breakfast. But if you do have a question, pop your hand up and I'm happy to have a chat. Oh, Jess, I just saw this question. Any tips for how to handle a manager who is uncomfortable providing space in meetings, conversations? Manager is always filling the quiet moments or not allowing them. After the manager has broadcasted the team at the meeting, when the meeting wraps up, out of time, I offer to provide input after meeting, after some reflection and thought, but I'd love to be, okay, great. So the manager's not allowing space in the meeting, and you've got some things to share. Is that right, Jess, if you're still here? And then how do you maybe interrupt the manager, or how do you manage that in a way that you can get your voice heard by the sounds and get your question shared? Is that what you're asking, Jess, if you're still here? If not, I'll reply to you separately because I only just saw that question. You asked it a half an hour ago. All right. So most people are, oh, Jess, okay. Yeah, do you want to unmute and we'll have a quick chat? And for those who are here might like to listen in, because we've still got 15 people on the call. So are you here, Jess? I don't know if you can unmute or whether you want to put your hand up and I can unmute you. Oh, there you are. There's your hand. Hey, Jess.
Hi, Karen.
Hi, how you doing?
I'm good, thank you. This is really helpful. Thank you.
I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased. So your question is, your manager conducts meetings and fills the space, and you've got some great ideas to share, but there's no space or time to do that, and you'd like to create that in the meeting. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. And the others in the team, I think, feel the same. So definitely obvious about that uncomfortableness or discomfort that the manager has around having some quiet space for people to reflect and think and contribute.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And so has there been any conversation with the manager outside of these meetings about this?
There has actually. There hasn't been much of a shift yet. I might even just point it to your webinars. But yeah, yeah.
And so is this a manager you report into?
Yes, at the moment, yeah.
Okay. Can you give me a bit of an idea of the quality or the kind of conversation that's been had so far in an attempt to shift behaviour?
I think just talking about sort of people's communication styles and differences and how we like to contribute. And we have pretty much said how it'd be useful to have space within our agendas or within our conversations to reflect on, like to dedicate some space to reflect on what's being said and collaborate. But I think in those moments, then unfortunately, this manager just jumps straight back in with ideas or solutions or, sort of starts to take back over, probably not willingly, but meaning to. But
Meaning to, yeah. What profiling tool do you use?
um,
Because you talked about different profiles.
yeah, people styles kit. I can't remember which one it's called actually at the moment, but
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So because this is really important, and one of the distinctions here, because one of the distinctions in my work is separating the person from the behavior, right? And what that means is if we're willing to reflect on the behavior and consider that the person is whole and complete, right, and we're looking at the behavior, then that can help us understand or be curious about. So if we dial up our curiosity, what's actually causing that behavior, right? What is it? And you spoke a little bit to that before, but there's a deeper place that you go here about what's actually what's driving that behavior. And one of the lenses that we can look through to understand that is the 6 core needs. Do you know about the 6 core needs?
I don't think so.
Okay. And so when we're using a behavioural profiling tool, that's extremely helpful as well. Like that's one of the core tools that I use in my programs as well, to give us a doorway into what's happening in the unconscious and what's driving behaviour, what are the patterns we're getting stuck in, what are the triggers and so on. And so marry that with the 6 core needs can be very helpful to understand what need does this person have, unconscious need that they don't know that they have, that they're trying to get filled by filling the space. That if I could speak to that and recreate that, which is a coaching term, which I can explain, then that's going to help that person, help me influence the behavior of that person. You with me?
Yep.
So the 6 core needs, and I may have covered this once before, but I use this in my coaching as well. So the need for significance, love and connection, certainty, variety. They're the first four, they're the 4 of, no, I won't do that because that will confuse. They're the 4 of the ego, and then the other 2, growth and contribution, right? So we mainly focus in our first phase of our self-leadership development journey. We focus on these first 4, and then we speak more to the growth and contribution. But as a first step, this can be very helpful. So, and these can correlate loosely with whatever behavioural profiling tool or communication profiling tool that you're using. But here's the thing, if someone's feeling the silence a lot, there could be some need for, there could be a need for significance, there could be a need for love and connection, there could be a need for certainty or variety. And the profile can help us understand what might be the driving need. And I just want to give you a bit more foundation, then I'll check in with you your understanding. And so one of these needs will be our driving need. Every human being will have one of these needs as their top need. And we often don't know it, mostly don't know it. And what we also don't know is that if we're not getting that need met in a resourceful way, we will get it met in an unresourceful way. You with me so far?
Yep.
And so if I have a need for love and connection, if that's my driving need and I don't know it and I'm not getting it in my life or at my work, I might come across to my manager as very needy and always wanting their time. But what I'm actually looking for is connection. That feeling of connection. You with me?
Yep.
Yeah. And so I don't know that I'm coming across as needy or someone who's demanding of my manager in my and this can happen in relationship as well, right? What I'm actually seeking is connection. And because I'm not getting that need filled, it's coming out in unresourceful ways, the expression of it, right? So your job is to understand, certainly you've got your behavioral profiling tool by the sounds of it, and you need to, it sounds like there's probably some areas where you could dig a bit deeper into understanding the person from that perspective as well. Yeah, because you said you're not really sure what the tool is that it's called. So there might be some opportunity to dig a bit deeper there, but also have a think about what their core need might be that they're getting met by speaking into the silence all the time. Now, why this is important is because if you know that, and if you know that, let's say their need is for significance, so they like the sound of their own voice, and I can say that because that sometimes is me and used to be me, not as much now, right? But if I have a high need for significance and I'm not getting it met in a resourceful way, I might just like the sound of my own voice and just keep talking. Yes? But if you want to influence my behavior, you could actually meet my need for significance in a resourceful way. And the way that you might do that is acknowledge me in front of other people. You might actually tell me how good I am about something if it's genuine, because that's going to have me feel significant. And all of a sudden then my need is met and I'm no longer trying to get it met in that unresourceful way I was doing before. Jess, are you with me?
Yes, that's good. I think I have actually seen that work a little bit when I've sort of said, oh, I agree with you on that point, and then I've added in some contribution.
Yes.
Correct. It's allowed some space.
Yes, very good. Excellent. So now do it with volition, do it with intention, and do it with a state of service. So, because it has to be genuine, right? And if someone's doing a lot of speaking, the last thing we really want to do usually is stroke their ego, because we think that's what's going to make the problem worse, right? That's what happens in our head. We're going, oh, I don't want to do that. But what you've done there is actually you've gone in and tried to connect with them a little bit, right? So I want you to now, in your next opportunity, and you could do this outside the meeting as well, but you've got to tune in and just start practicing to hear which of their core needs is sort of being driven here. Do you get me?
Yes.
And speak to that. And so that the speaking into that listening is what we call it, is what I call it. So you're speaking into the listening of significance, you're speaking into the listening of love and connection, if that's the need. And what you say will be different, and how you say it will be dependent on what the need is. But as you said, you've already had a go at practicing that. And I would ask you now to do that with even more genuine intent. Does this make sense?
Yes.
So tell me what you've gotten out of this piece. What's new for you here?
I think I wasn't aware of the 6 core needs in that way. And I do think in this particular instance, it is about significance or potentially certainty. So I think it's a good opportunity for me to revisit the conversations with that lens to see how I could sort of resource those needs, so that then it allows the space for others to contribute. Yes,
perfect. Yeah, so that's when we start to become someone who's really great at influence. So it's almost like we have this superpower where we're dropping these little crumbs all over the place, and it's opening people up and shifting behavior in a way that's causing and creating more trust. But it has to be genuine, it has to be authentic with integrity. Yeah? Good job.
Stroking that ego. Thank you for that.
Yeah. What was that about the ego?
You said just about being authentic. I'll have to be mindful about stroking that ego, so that there is that space to for the person to step back and allow that other conversation.
Yeah. So when I said stroking the ego, I was being a bit facetious, because I would never use that phrase around when we're when we're wanting to communicate or intentionally influence somebody. I was sort of, I just want to be clear with you where I'm coming from. When we're doing this, we're not stroking the ego, because that to me is kind of not that genuine place. We want to be in a place of service.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. Awesome. Thanks for the question, Jess. That was good.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, amazing. All right, I'm going to jump off, guys. Thank you so much for being here. I know there's a few people still on the call. I hope that's been valuable for you as well. So I'm sure some people who are here still listening have gotten value out of that question, Jess. Thank you. All right, I'll see you next month or maybe sooner, who knows. And I look forward to connecting again soon. Have a great day, everyone. Take care.